Hello, and welcome back to the Long Distance Love Bombs podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jeremy Goldberg. My guest today is Talia Gutin. Talia is a professional certified coach from the Coactive Training Institute. She's also received a lot of training in somatic and human needs psychology, leadership development, relationship coaching, mindfulness, and NLP, Neurolinguistic Programming. She's also a yoga teacher. She is a former model who has been through a lot. She tells a story about being sexually taken advantage of when she was younger and how that led her down this path of trying to figure out who she was and how her life unfolded. She currently is employed by Vienna Pharaon, who is at MindfulMFT. She is coaching women and couples about their relationships with themselves and the world. And in this conversation, we dive deep into the topic of authenticity. What does it mean? How does it happen? Why is it important? And one thing I loved about the conversation is Talia describes authenticity not as a singular expression, like one and done, but rather an ongoing dialogue or conversation that you have with yourself continually. And this makes sense to me because I am perpetually evolving, expanding, changing. And so it makes sense then that I need to check in with myself regularly to unpack and understand what it means to be authentically me. So if you are looking for ways to fully express yourself, to be more authentic in your workplace, in your relationships, in the world, then this is a good one for you. And I think you're really going to dig what Talia has to say. So without further ado, here is Talia Gutin. This episode is brought to you by Cured Nutrition. Cured is the leader in CBD supplementation with an entire line of products designed to take your everyday life to its ultimate potential. Their daily staples are formulated with an in-house clinical herbalist, which has taken the traditional CBD regimen to an entirely new level of optimization. If you're anything like me, you like waking up feeling good and living well. You've probably toyed around with the idea of finding healthy alternatives to jumpstart your morning. Personally, it's why I start my day with Cured Rise, which is their focus supplement. It's a powerhouse blend of functional mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps, broad-spectrum CBD, and powerful adaptogens. It gives me clean, clear, and sustained energy without any of the caffeine jitters or crash that I get with coffee. After I get going, Aura is next. It's another blend of functional mushrooms, CBD, and adaptogens, but it's got a twist. We all know how important it is to sustain our immunity nowadays, and this covers all of my bases. The vitamin D, prebiotics, crucial antioxidants are delivered straight to the gut, which is the foundation of our emotional and physical health. Am I right? Second brain. It's where the majority of our serotonin production and immune function begin, or it keeps everything in check, performing at its best. So I have one less thing to worry about, and I obviously cannot forget Zen. I use it every night. It is certainly why it has become Cure's #1 selling relaxation and sleep product. You know the long nights spent tossing and turning? Yeah, not with this stuff. It has ingredients like reishi mushroom, ashwagandha, magnesium, passion flower, broad spectrum CBD. So thankfully, restlessness is something of the past. Cured Nutrition products are your answer for a daily dose of health. Visit curednutrition.com. That's CURED nutrition.com. Be sure to use the coupon code LOVEBOMBS, and at the checkout you will save 10% off your order. Talia Gutin, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we were just catching up, and since we've seen each other, you have become a mom and moved and undergoing all kinds of life changes. But for those listening that are like, who's Talia Gutin? I have no idea who this lady is. How do you describe yourself? Like, who are you?
Oh man, are we talking about like existentially here? Like, yeah.
I just love that question as an opening, because sometimes people have
right.
the prepared elevator pitch and like, I'm an author, I'm a published writer, whatever. And then occasionally people are like, oh gosh, where do I begin? How do I even start? So whatever you feel like saying, really.
Yeah. So I am a mother. That is something that is very present for me right now. In addition to that, I work as a coach, and I have been working actually with on the MindfulMFT team as a resident coach for quite some time, and working primarily with people around the topic of authenticity, which I know we're going to be exploring a little bit today. I'm a coach, I'm a mother, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a yoga teacher, I am a lifelong learner, and yeah, really, and then in the existential sense, always asking myself that question: who am I, and what am I here for, and who am I really? So it's sort of an esoteric response. I guess I fall on that side of the pole, but that's a little bit about who I am.
Yeah, I watched a video on your website earlier today, and you were talking about your experience living in Israel as a model and then flying to LA with some shady agent guy. And I had no idea about that whole part of your life. And then now you're working with Vienna. I call her Vienna Pharaon, a conscious queen on a throne with a mind of her own. I don't know if you've heard that before, but with V, and now you're doing healing, teaching, etc. So, what was your journey like to get from sort of there to here, so to speak? Is there anything that comes up that's
So
as you deeply sigh?
We're diving right in here. Gosh, okay. So I think that period of my life was, I was 20 when I had quite a traumatic experience, to label it as such, around sort of pushing my limits so much and not knowing what my boundaries were. And it's from that moment in time. I think that moment for me really spawned a lot of my self-reflection and my curiosity to get to really know myself in a way that I was really clear on when to say yes and when to say no, and what I care about and what I like and how I wanted to sort of focus my life. So yeah, I think that I guess I'm sort of speaking quite vaguely, wondering, yeah, what do you think? Should I talk about what that video was, or just more specifically talk about like the journey that I went on as a result of that experience?
The part that struck me was when you were on the green corduroy couch.
Yeah.
I felt like that was an epiphany of sorts, or a rock bottom, or a moment in which you really had some genuine self-awareness and reflection of like, oh my gosh, what's happening? How did I get here, etc. I feel like that's a common thread that I hear from various guests and clients that I work with. And I'm sure you hear that often too, that kind of like reckoning of sorts.
Yeah, it was very much a reckoning. And it's so interesting, right? Just saying the green corduroy couch, and I can immediately take myself back to that place and that feeling and that moment. And I think that, yeah, like I was saying, it was almost like my words and my actions and my choices, like I was so separate from them for so long. And then on that green corduroy couch, I just finally caught up with myself and with the choices that I had made that brought me to that moment in time. And yeah, it was like sort of this deep moment of like, how the fuck did I get here? Like, how did I get here? Sorry, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw your face. I was like, great. But like, how did I get here in the literal sense? How did I get here in the symbolic sense? How did I get here in the metaphorical sense? Like, how did I get here? And I didn't have the answer. And that was extremely unsettling, painful, challenging, all the things. And I think that from that moment on, it took, it really sort of was the motivation I needed to begin that quest of getting to know myself from the inside out, so that never again would I get to a moment in my life where I didn't know how I got to that moment, right? Where I wasn't actually connected to my choices, my actions, all the things that moved me through life.
Is it fair to say, like, it's that moment where you look in the mirror and just don't recognize yourself or your life, or is there like a feeling of lostness there, or ungrounding, or all of the above?
Yeah, certainly lostness, right? Of where am I, sort of this feeling of I'm lost and drifting, but not like the good kind of lost, like we're traveling in a country and like the intentional loss, like the unintentional loss, feeling of lostness. I think that it's a big distinction. It's like I'm lost both in my physical environment, but first and foremost, I'm lost in myself. And that can feel really, quite honestly, it felt really scary, like terrified of that moment. Terrified of feeling that again. And I think that part of the work that I've done over the last decade of my life is to find such a deep sense of home and sort of like an anchoring in myself, so that I can be anywhere in the world, in any situation, in any environment, and still feel that sense of familiarity in myself.
So then, is it fair to say that like that experience planted the seed, so to speak, or like that wound gave you purpose, the pain gave you purpose, or like, is that part of your why? I mean, it is, because I saw it on the video. It's titled like, "This is my why," but like, you know what I mean?
Right. Like aside from the title of the video.
Yeah, I just remembered as it was coming out of my mouth, part of my brain was like, "You idiot! You read that like an hour ago."
Yeah. So it's a great question. Very much so. And very much a part of my why. And we hurt where we care, and we care where we hurt, right? Like our pain, our purpose grows from our pain, just as you said. So I think so much of what feels like a part of a component of my purpose, I no longer sort of hold the belief that it's like, this is my purpose, like my one total purpose. I think there are different components, and it evolves over time. But for me, a big part of it is helping women in particular, young women in particular, learn themselves so that they can feel a deep home within themselves, so that they can come home to themselves and not find themselves in situations such as the one that I entered or that I was in.
And so when you say come home to yourself, or to make a home in yourself, what does that mean? How do you describe that?
So I would say it means, right, and we can think about, like, I can speak about this in a more esoteric sense, and then get sort of like practical about what does that process actually look like. And I think it's about getting to know what I call your authentic self. Sometimes it's known as your true self, right? Your sort of this like core essence self, and that it's really about unbecoming all the parts that aren't you and shedding the mask as you get to know what you like, what you care about, what you stand for, what matters most to you, not from sort of this, right, not thinking about, how do I say it, like really not showing up in the world based on how other people want you to be, but really getting to know who you are at your deepest core and living from that place. And I think that just pulling in that word, because again, I think about it as authenticity, right? Getting to know your authentic self. That authenticity is an ongoing conversation with what's true for me now, what's true for me now, what's true for me now, right? It's not this fixed destination, right? This moment at which we arrive at this authentic self, but it is this ongoing dialogue with ourselves, with what feels true, what feels right. Yeah, that's some more of how I think about it in the esoteric self sense.
Yeah, I like that idea that your authentic self is perpetually shifting moment to moment, day to day, and that it to stay in that place to like keep your home tidy, so to speak, you have to have an ongoing dialogue with yourself about who you are right now or today. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the practical side of that, I feel would be helpful because in my own experience, alive, like life's pretty tough sometimes and confusing and overwhelming and emotional. And how do you maintain a practice of authenticity yourself? And then how do you teach it to others?
Yeah. So, did you hear my deep exhale there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's like the embodiment piece of just like, I think, right, getting carried away in the concept of authenticity, but what does that really look like in the day to day? I really appreciate that.
Because sometimes you see people and they're like,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, sorry, that's just my authentic truth. And it's like, no, you're being an asshole. Like, that's not your authentic self at all. That's just your ego tricking you into thinking that's who you are.
Yeah. Right. I hate that statement. Like, I'm just being like this. I'm just speaking my truth. Right. Like, speaking your truth doesn't give you permission to be an asshole to other people. Right. And to not feel, right. To not be aware of your impact on others. And I think that so much of authenticity is also about being, just as you're sort of in a constant conversation with yourself, you're also in a constant conversation with your environment, right? And aware of what's the impact I'm having on the other. And how can I take responsibility for that impact? So I think that in terms of the practical day to day of what does a practice of authenticity look like, and I think it so begins with finding sort of a grounding in myself. And I'll think about it through my experience first. So it's like entering the day with a meditation practice, with journal, like some like morning sort of ritual to like ground me into my day and into myself. I think that that's a really, really big component around, how I stay authentic in my day-to-day life. It's one of the things that I've been noticing lately is actually here, I'll give you a good, clear definition of how I like to use authenticity. So authenticity is alignment between thoughts, between your thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. Authenticity is finding alignment between your thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. Right? So what I think is what I say, is how I feel is how I act. Right? And I think that included in actions is decisions. So we can't make a decision, or we can't take action without first making a decision. So I think that, right, actually checking in with my words, or am I speaking, right, to feel validated by the other, or am I speaking what actually feels true for me? Not to say that I can say whatever I want and be an asshole to the other, right? But I'm actually speaking what feels true to me, while also tending to the impact that I have on others. I am making choices that are in alignment with my values. Right? I think that's a huge component of authenticity, is getting to know your values, what matters most to you in the world. That we can't actually do the work of authenticity without knowing what our values are. And then so making choices that align with our values. And from there, taking actions that are in alignment with those choices. Right? So this alignment between thoughts, words, feelings, and actions is a really sort of tangible way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I like that. To go back to the asshole dissection, that's perhaps a inappropriate visual, but metaphorically, right? It's just, if you're acting like an asshole, then your actions perhaps are misaligned with your values. If you value things like kindness, love, belonging, etc., right? And so then you may hypothetically be saying like, oh, this is my authentic self, or I'm just being authentic, when in fact you are inauthentic because you are not aligned entirely with your feelings, values, behaviors, etc., right? You're kind of like out of integrity, is being inauthentic in a sense. Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that's spot on, right? Like if I have a value of kindness, but my words are right, not honoring that value, I'm speaking in an unkind way to others. That's certainly right conflicting with that value, and so it's a way in which I may be out of alignment with my authenticity. And I think, right, it's a fine line around, right, I can still speak what's real and true while just being aware of what the impact that my words have on other people. Right. So not withholding what I want to say at the expense of another's feelings, but also, right, not just saying something, right, that is perhaps unkind or cruel.
Yeah. I recorded this episode with Perry Chase, and we were talking about the idea that honesty is kindness, right? And how sometimes the most kind thing you can do to someone is to speak up in a way that might be received as hurtful by them. Like you might have to make them sad or feel disappointed, but deep down, that value of honesty and that information is a kind thing to do, but because it gives them some data to make better decisions, to learn some things, to evolve or grow, etc. So that's where I feel like it gets tricky, right? Like, am I authentic? Am I in integrity? Am I being a jerk? Am I not thinking of the other person? And there's lots of like overlapping gray areas, so to speak.
Yeah.
How do we navigate that? Or is it like trying to figure it out as we go? The answer, like,
right, and that's reality, right? Like it's not. And were we talking about that? Yeah.
It's annoying. Reality.
It's annoying. Reality is annoying. But it's real, right? Like there's that's the thing about authenticity. It's like there is no formula, right? There is no, it is this way and then it's this way. And to your point about kindness, it's like kindness isn't pleasing, right? It's not, kindness isn't like niceness, right? Right. There is, and I think that on the note of kindness, everyone needs to define their values for themselves, right? So for you, it sounds like part of that's how you interpret this value of kindness. And that's part of the work of authenticity is, right, starting to really define what each value means to you, because everyone interprets things in a different way. And so, yeah, I also think like, yeah, so there's no formula around this experience of authenticity. And that's why I like to think of it as a moment to moment experiment, right? It's like, okay, what's the experiment that I want to try on right now? Maybe I say something and I check in with myself. Oh, okay, that actually felt right. Like I actually just got this sort of body response, and that I feel that was in alignment with how I really feel. And then maybe sometimes we make a decision, and a few minutes or weeks later, it's like, oh no, like that actually didn't feel right. Can I clean up my mess? And so I think that when it comes to authenticity, perfection is not what we're striving for, right? It doesn't exist. No one's 100% authentic 100% of the time. But we can, right, I think the distinction is, can I, right, be willing to make mistakes and clean up my mess and try.
Yeah. When you were talking about nobody being authentic, the image that I had in my mind, my brain was like toddlers. Like, I used to work in a preschool. Like, toddlers, I feel like, are the most authentic people on the planet. Like, I was talking to my sister a couple months ago, and like on FaceTime or whatever, and she had like a little 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, and she like shows her she turns the screen so I can see the girl. She's like, Uncle Jeremy's on the phone. Say hi. And she just turns and looks at the screen and says, I don't want to talk to him. And I was like, oh, like that stings. And respect. Like, you're sharing exactly how you feel without any intention to cause harm. It was just like, I don't want to talk to him right now. And so I feel like toddlers have it, and perhaps something gets lost or taught out of us along the way. And I think maybe that relates to what you said earlier about trying to unlearn or unpack certain conditioning that we've taken on.
Yeah, toddlers. So I need to rephrase my statement. Toddlers are 100% authentic 100% of the time, but it's like, so at what point do we begin to sacrifice our authenticity to be liked or to receive validation or to feel better in some way? And that is a learned thing. So it's like we come into the world authentic, something happens, over a period of time, and then a lot of the work is like, okay, can I start to reclaim that sense of authenticity and unbecome and start to identify what are the masks, these social facing masks that I have developed or grown, and how can I start to shed those masks for the sake of really expressing what's true and real for me now.
Yeah. It almost like has to be done, right? Because you can't just stay 100% authentic as a toddler and then grow up and run governments and have policemen and do all the things, right? So I like this idea that's an ongoing experiment or a conversation. I think that's happening both individually, but also collectively, right? It's like, how real can we be, right? How honest can we be with one another? And things that come to mind are like politically correct statements, or to your point about people wearing masks or having these superficial identities or pretending to be something they're not. I guess what I'm curious about is, where do we, like, where do we compromise that? Or what are your thoughts on living an authentic life collectively? Does that make sense? Or is it simply a matter of doing the individual? I recognize I'm completely down the rabbit hole now, or is it simply a matter of like, yo, focus on you. That's all you're in control of. That's all you can influence. And like, if we all did that, we'll be fine. Don't worry about the bigger picture.
So I think
there's a bunch of random thoughts at you, Talia.
It's so much about holding the duality of self and other when it comes to authenticity. So I really appreciate what you're saying about this idea of like collective authenticity. And I guess how I'm trying to decide like how philosophical I want to go right now.
What feels most authentic to you, Talia?
Yeah. One thing I've been doing is, because I tend to like I speak quickly, and so I'm actually trying to like slow down. I'm not really doing it now, but I try to slow down my speech to actually check in with myself and say, like, do I really want to say that? Like, not in a overthinking kind of way, but like slowing down my words enough to be able to actually like really check in with myself. And does this feel authentic? I forget why I went on that other tangent just now. But one way of thinking about authenticity is it's something that we gain through solitude, right? Through our own, like our individual work separate from the other is how we start to develop this sort of core center in ourselves. And the other pole is thinking about authenticity is developed and can only be developed through how we relate to the other, right? That like the other is required to sort of reflect back aspects of myself. And so it's from that place that I can actually develop like sort of this authentic relating with the other. So it's like on one end of the spectrum, we find authenticity in solitude. On the other end of the spectrum, we find authenticity in community, in relationship with the other. And so I think that it's so much about both, right? Like, how can I start to do my own individual work separate from anyone else? But we don't live in a world where we're all just these individuals. Like, we are individual humans walking around, but we're always in relation to others. And so I think that authenticity it requires community. It requires relationship. Yeah, it's really easy to say you want to be your authentic self, and then you are sort of encounter someone that might trigger you, or someone that is just brings something up for you, and that can sometimes be a test of authenticity.
Yeah, and to your point about discovering your authentic self through solitude, that is such a rare thing in our modern society, right? I mean, I know, I'm speaking to like a new mother who's working and in partnership, but to have a moment of genuine solitude and aloneness and quiet where you can do nothing else than just check in with who you really are in that moment, I feel is a rare thing that must be intentionally pursued, so to speak. Like, do you have practices where you do that? Is meditation an example of that? Or you said you have a morning ritual where you check in?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that in terms of a practice, meditation is a way to access solitude. Writing is a way to access solitude. I wonder if you have that experience. I think for me, writing is like one of the places where I feel safest and actually most connected to myself. I find solitude in reading. I find solitude in nature, hiking, sort of in the quiet. And I think that people, right, solitude isn't loneliness, right? That's almost the shadow of solitude, and that we live in a world where so many people like deeply fear that, right? Just being alone. Because like a fear of loneliness, where also solitude is something that's available to someone that starts to get more comfortable in spending time on their own. And I think this is part of what I'm studying in grad school, but it's that like the impact of technology on our ability to actually access solitude, and therefore develop that sort of center, authentic core. And I think that, yeah, it's a big modern challenge, because there are just so many distractions that are constantly pulling us away from ourselves, right? And so if we don't actually have the time to pause and listen to the voice within, it's hard to get really familiar with that voice. And yeah.
Yeah. And even when you start to do that work, I imagine it's pretty confronting or uncomfortable or scary to discover who you genuinely are. Like going back to your story about being on that couch, it was like my mom calls them come to Jesus moments, where it's like, oh shit, come to Jesus moments of like the scab is kind of ripped off, right? Or there's this download into your bones. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is what's real. And how do you help people navigate that? I think that's some of the work that you do, yeah, with clients. What are some common things that may arise when people start to pursue an authentic life or start practicing solitude?
Yeah. Gosh, it's so true what you're saying. It's like how confronting it can be when we start to slow down and really start to pay attention to um, to what's authentic, or the work, but actually doing this type of work. And so that's why so many of us avoid it. And certainly there's been times in my life where I have avoided it as well, because of how intense it can feel. I think that what's true for me now is the realization that authentic doesn't mean, like, it's not necessarily leading you to more joy and more happiness and more quote unquote sort of positive feelings. That there is, like, it's a welcoming of every emotion and every part and every experience, and a validating of every emotion and every part and every experience. And I think like that sort of the core of what I do in my personal work, as well as with my clients. It's like there's nothing off limits. Like every part, every feeling gets a seat at the table. And so, right, I've done a lot of studying of Jungian psychology in grad school, and right, a big part of Jung's work is on this sort of the shadow archetype, right? So this darkness that lives within each of us, right? In an individual and a collective sense in all of nature. And I think that part of the sort of the work of discovering one's authentic self is a grappling with the darkness within, the parts that we don't like, the parts that are really uncomfortable for us to be with. And that's a necessary part of, sort of finding an integrated authenticity. So yeah, a lot of work on the parts that we don't like about ourselves, and being with those parts and accepting those.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah.
The work that you do, the experiences that you had in terms of integrated authenticity? Is that what you just said?
I say integrated because it's like not like shadowy authenticity, like just saying to someone, I'm just speaking my truth, like
Right.
grounded. Yeah.
It's like the whole spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I see this all the time is people start to do the work. They want to be happier. They want to be more fulfilled. They want to make more money. They want to have better relationships. And you're like, great, cool. Let's dive into the darkness. It's like, oh, no. I want all of the good stuff. You're like, no, yeah, you'll get that. But you have to, all the good stuff's hiding over here in shadows. Like, you gotta dive in. And I like that way that you put that about integrated authenticity of the wholeness, the whole spectrum, the entirety of aliveness, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think like that's authenticity, right? It's like sort of this integration of all the different parts of ourselves, right? Like you said, that full spectrum, the totality of our experience. And yeah, right. So many of us just sort of run away from the dark parts and those pieces that are really confronting. And I understand why. Right.
Right.
How it's like terrifying and uncomfortable and scary and hard and yeah, and real and true.
What are some ways that you support people through that terrifying journey?
I think it's a lot about like just normalizing the experience. And normalizing the experience of what people are going through. And I recognize we're in esoteric land right now. But it's like, it's really, there's not much to do. Right. And I think like that's not much to do in the sense of like, it's not something to be fixed or solved. It's something to sit with and be with. And in my work, it's like being able to hold that space with another person and to sit and be with another as they're moving through their own internal challenges or dark parts or facing those aspects of themselves. It's about witnessing, being with, holding, allowing versus needing to fix or solve it.
Yeah. Like when somebody is saying to you, like, I just feel really sad. It's like, yeah, you feel sad. Like you're doing it right. There's this misconception that doing the work, going to therapy, etc., is like, oh, I'm doing it wrong because I'm frustrated, or I don't want to talk about this, or I don't want to be here. You're like, oh no, this is it. Like, well done. Like great awareness. Like you're on your way, etc. And I think to mirror that and to support whatever comes up is just like a really powerful thing. You know? Along that same line, I heard one of your favorite words is responsibility. So I wanted to.
Who told you that?
Probably you did on your video that I watched. Or I read it somewhere, or I don't know. I was snooping your website earlier, but I figured I would just toss that softball into the conversation at some point, which is like, what's the deal? Responsibility, how does it relate to authenticity? Why do you like that word? A lot of people don't like that word.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, right? It's like, I wonder, one, I haven't updated my website in quite some time. So my thoughts have probably changed, but I think so. Responsibility, why I like that word. It's like responsibility. I just think of it as my ability to respond, right? my responsibility, my ability to respond in a skillful way to each moment of my life, right? And not through a lens of fear, fantasy, or distortion, not through a lens of, right, like through from a place of like really responding to each moment as it comes, and sort of what I was saying before around like no one else is going to do the work for you. No one else is going to take the reins of your life. We can drift through our lives, or we can pull the reins ourselves and decide which way is this, like which way am I going to go? Which way is will I drive the car? And I think that responsibility to me is quite empowering, in the sense of, right, it is me and it is up to me and only me to decide where my life goes. And I think responsibility also has to be sort of paired with acceptance of what is, because I think that sometimes with responsibility there can be like I just want to will my way into everything or force things, and that it's being able to take responsibility for what you can control, and letting go of that which can't be controlled, or accepting that which is beyond your control.
Yeah, it's like an invitation of sorts, like a magic trick. It's like, hey, take some responsibility and you can make your life like whatever you want it to be. You can choose different stories, choose different beliefs, quit your job, try something new, etc. And so I like that. It's empowering, I suppose, right?
Yeah, empowering of like, also we don't always, right, like not to always feel like a victim of our circumstances, but that we have the power to, right, to choose, to look at a perspective differently, to take action, right? Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
What have we not touched on that you feel like screaming at the world? Is there anything that you're like, Jeremy, why didn't you ask me about blah? Like, is there anything we haven't covered, or
what does authenticity mean to you?
Oh gosh, when the guest flipped the script, what does it mean to me? Yeah, I think I agree with what you described earlier about where everything is in alignment. Like a word that I like a lot is integrity. And I feel like perhaps integrity is a manifestation of authenticity, whereby, like I had a guest on, Beth Handel, and she talked about integrity being a life where your values and your actions are aligned and you can keep a promise to yourself. And so for me, if I'm being authentic, I feel like that requires a certain amount of integrity, whereby my values and my actions are aligned. And it can be uncomfortable at times to live a life of integrity and speak the truth and stand up for what you desire, right? And at the same time, there's this deep inner kind of strength that I feel comes with that, like, or a pride or an ease in a sense. Like I often joke that I'm a lazy man. And so lying to me just feels so hard. It's like so much work to have to remember who you said what to and what was promised, and how even putting on masks. Maybe I'm just getting old. Like putting on masks in different situations, socially or otherwise, just feels like a lot of work. So for me, authenticity is kind of like the lazy man's approach to living. It just feels energetically easier on some sense, but at the same time, energetically costly as you learn the ropes of that, so to speak. like now I'm much more comfortable saying things that might, make a client cry, or like disappoint someone, or decline an invitation, right? I'm just like, fuck it, I don't care. I know that this is a no for me. And also, to your point about the other, like I'm living with an individual, Kendra Adachi, who's like very good at honoring her truth. Like that is the stake in the ground upon which her life seems to revolve, like high integrity, extreme authenticity. And so I get it mirrored to me in relationship frequently, for better and worse, depending on the moment and how I'm feeling. But like it's nice to be immersed in an environment in which that is completely normalized, right? And so as a consequence of that, when I go out into the world and I see things, or I read things, or I experience individuals or events, I feel like my inauthenticity radar is now heightened as a consequence of greater exposure to authentic people, friendships, relationships, purpose, etc. Like, have you watched like late night talk show TV now, or even like talk shows in general? They're so fucking fake. Like the guests are all covered in makeup and the lighting's perfect, and they know exactly what they're going to be asked, and they've rehearsed the answers, and there's these cheesy jokes, and it's like, this is like repulsive in a sense to me now.
Curated reality.
Yeah. It's like, I want the real shit. I want the shadow stuff. Where's the authentic connection, conversation, etc.? Anyway, I'm completely rambling, but that is what authenticity means to me. Thank you for asking. Did I answer your question?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because I'm just curious your thoughts.
Sure.
Obviously, what do you think? How do you think that social media impacts authenticity?
Well, geez, that's a rabbit hole, isn't it? I think that it works both ways, right? And so what I've seen over the last, several years in this space is a recognition that authenticity is strategically good for business, so to speak. I guess I'm answering this from a professional perspective because a lot of my work is online and that, but I try to reverse engineer why I follow the people and adore the people that I do on social media. And oftentimes, if you reverse engineer far enough, I find that I just genuinely like who they are, and I can feel them, like their content, their stories, their photos. Like I genuinely can like feel them being a human, and my human appreciates that. Versus an account, a person, a company, a brand, etc., that puts things out onto social media, and it just feels misaligned. That idea of being an authenticity antenna or a radar, you can just feel it. It's like, this isn't you. Like, you're trying to sell me shit, or you're manipulating me to buy your product, or this is a focused group talk that you're giving clearly, or like, I don't believe that you believe the things you're saying. Like, there's just like this feeling inside, and I don't love that. In my experience, like once you have access to the real shit, it's like, it's the same reason I don't eat McDonald's anymore. It's like, no, I don't eat that stuff. I like that. I want the real stuff. Give me real food. I want give me a carrot, make me a sandwich, like with real ingredients. It's the same thing. I feel like I'm just perpetually undertaking a quest for like genuine existence, like real aliveness. Like I want the real stuff. And so in saying that, I'm also really glad that social media was not around when I was a kid, and especially a teenager, and definitely in college because I would have been arrested. But I mean, social media is yikes. How are you gonna like raise your kid? Like, imagine what it's gonna be like in another 10, 12 years when he's a teenager.
I really am just like praying for the development of some counterculture, right? Like, because in what you're saying, right? Like, I think that the world, this is funny because I know I was recommending this to you earlier but like the world is hungry for reality. Like, and I think that hunger is going to just grow, like, for the authentic, for the real. And I think as you were speaking, Jeremy, it's like, so the two measurements for you around sustaining authenticity in the world of social media or Instagram is, can I feel this person? And wait, what was the second thing?
Do I believe
can I feel this?
Like,
yeah, right. Can I feel this person? Do I believe them? Like, how do I feel when I am with them? And I think that, right, like we're starved. Like our world is just going to be increasingly more desirous of this. Oh, this is the other one. Human. You said that multiple times. Like, can I feel them? And it's just like, I'm a human, they're a human, and like that. I think of like at the root of authenticity as I speak about it, it's like this awakening of like the depth of our humanity, right? And like all that is there. And that is not something that is felt in a curated environment. It's not something that is felt right with the mask, without sort of like the depth of the human behind the mask. So when you say, oh my goodness.
I was just reminded, like a couple of days ago, I got this comment on something I posted. I did this podcast with Jade Electra, and she's exposing this dude that, well, I had to have a disclaimer at the front, but she's alleging that he is a cult leader and has done some very abusive and manipulative things. And I believe her. But one of the comments on that post was something like, "Hey, Jeremy, I don't follow a lot of men on the internet because I don't get a good vibe from them, but you feel good. So thank you for being you." And like that to me is like such a meaningful comment. Like that's 100 times better than like, "I like your writing," or "This is the best thing I've ever read." It was like, I feel you based upon how you are showing up in this social media space. And that feels good. And like, thank you for that. And like, for me, at least, my values, the way that I desire to be a human and do work in this planet is like that. It's like, I want to try to make the world better. And so, yeah, I think it's just that. And I totally agree with you that we're starved for reality. We are starved for authenticity, which is why I think I mentioned that it's a strategic business decision, because it's the magic stuff. It's rare and it's special and it's impactful. It is connecting, uniting. And to my point about being lazy, it's like, it's pretty easy. Just like, you have to trust and surrender to yourself. That's the work though, right? To all this stuff that you do and talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I think like, even I hear what you're saying of like, from a business perspective, people like authenticity and they're drawn to that. They're attracted to that. But even like, is authenticity something that can be strategized, right? Or is that something that starts to, like, I think it, right? But it's like, even that is like a selling point. It's like, oh, the world wants authenticity now. Let me go be authentic because but I still just want to be validated or to receive, right? It's more nuanced than that, but it's like the moment that we even like, is that fair to say?
It's like, it's an egoic trap, right? Of like, oh, I'm so honest and I'm so real and I'm so authentic. And it's like, well, are you though? I don't know. It's like I've definitely read some stuff on the internet where I'm like, you've like swung, and I've probably written some stuff now looking back and thinking about it. Like I've probably written some stuff where in the moment, I'm like, I'm just speaking my truth. But the underlying subconscious intention was like, I desire praise, love, adoration, right? I've seen some stuff where I'm like, I don't believe that. Like I can't feel you in this truth. It feels manufactured, right? And so again, I go back to the idea that I think when you're in the presence of genuine truth, it like you just know. Like you can't fake it. I think maybe.
Right. And that's right. That's I don't think you can. Like I have to believe in the world that like that genuine, authentic, sincere truth, like that self experience that you're describing, that cannot be manufactured. Like AI isn't going to manufacture, like virtual reality, like social media, and all the different things that there is. Again, I'm like one of those people that wants to move to a forest and like raise my like just feel it sort of like live on like a kibbutz, like something in that way, and like never touch technology ever again. But I also recognize that, except for Google Maps, I always say like I want Google Maps to come with me because it would just get very complicated trying to navigate my way around the world without Google Maps.
Google Maps, like maybe Uber once in a while, like Uber Eats or some food. Right. Well, this is wonderful. You're wonderful. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your knowledge. And I know you've got an outdated website, but and you're teaching a thing in early May. Yeah. But where can people get into your world, Talia?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where can people get into my world? I would say that I am off social media for the most part. However, I am, as you said, leading a program through MindfulMFT, through what do you call her, Vienna.
I wrote a spoken word poem for their wedding. Yeah, and I did a whole thing about her being like, you'd like it because you know her now. It's like, what was it? A conscious queen on a throne with the mind of her own. Miss, I'll take New York by storm, and what was it? Like, I'll box 12 rounds on my way home and then share a post I wrote. I'm an Instagram celebrity, and people always talk to me and tell me things about their family history. I don't know. I wrote this whole thing anyway.
Okay. I need to see that.
It's on her Instagram, like her videos. Anyway, but she's wonderful. You work with her. You're leading a training about authenticity.
Leading a training about authenticity. It's reclaiming authenticity, and it's really about getting to know your authentic self and really learning how that part of you can be the leader of your life, guide your choices, your actions. And it's an 8-week program. I've super, just like a beautiful journey. Lots of powerful work. And I'd say like that's the best at this point in time. Just finding me via the MindfulMFT website is the best way of locating me at the moment.
And then is there a site for that 8-week program, or there will be?
There will be. Yeah. Okay. The website is NewYorkCouplesCounseling.com.
I can put a link to that in the show notes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool. If you're listening, check that out. An 8-week guided program to your authentic self and finding your way home inside. Is that reasonable?
Perfectly said. Love it.
Okay. All right, friend. Well done. Thanks for this. It's fun.
Thank you.
So that's Talia Gutin talking all about authenticity. As mentioned, you could work with her directly. There's a link in the show notes. You could apply for a phone call conversation on the internet. And then periodically she runs group programs through Mindfulness MFT, I think it's called. MindfulMFT. NewYorkCouplesCounseling.com. Anyway, does group programs about authenticity. You can get involved in that. And more than anything, just get involved. Get involved with your life. Get involved with your passion. Get involved with your truth. Get involved with what excites you. Get involved with your feelings. Just get involved, you know? Anyway, I adore you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the 5-star reviews, for spreading the word, for sharing the podcast on Instagram and tagging me and saying, this changed my fucking life, Jeremy. You're so handsome. I love you. Even though no one has yet said that, but I'm sure it's coming at some point. And yeah, you can find me online at Long Distance Love Bombs. I send a weekly newsletter out, and I'm on Instagram too. Thanks for being here, and I will talk to you soon.